You have Rama, Ravana, you have Krishna, Kansa, Shishupala. Not too many people know about Kartavirarjuna. We have a mortal king, practically immortal, cannot be defeated. And his power is so overwhelming that not only does he corrupt himself, he starts to corrupt the entire system because everything warps to his wish. There is a need for righteous wrath. When things go too bad, you cannot be having the shield of tolerance all the time. You don't recite poetry to a pointed sword. You can't preach philosophy to somebody who's trying to attack you. Put it in a very casual way, the superstars are Sri Rama and Kṛṣṇa. They take the entire spotlight. And it's somewhat unfortunate that we do not really understand the scope and the magnificence of Paraśurāma. He took on this whole mighty Samrat single-handedly. I find out that this supposedly violent, aggressive man has one hymn in the Rig Veda. And it's an absolutely amazing hymn because it doesn't show violence at all. It invokes three goddesses, Ila, Bharati and Saraswati. We have to wait for Kalki Avatar to come because he's going to be the guru to Kalki Avatar. So
Namaste. Welcome to another podcast by Sangam Talks. We are here with our esteemed guest Ranjit Radhakrishnan. Ranjit is a Bangalore-based entrepreneur. He's a book writer. In his previous careers, he has also done a lot of other things. He's been an actor, he's been an assistant director, he's been a script writer, and also a tall manager. You name it, Ranjit has done it. Ranjit is best known currently for his hit novels. One of them is called Rama of the Axe, and then a sequel to it called Blade of Fury. He brings a fresh life and depth to the lesser explored stories of Paraśurāma, one of the 10 Avatāras of Lord Vishnu. He has a huge amount of interest in our Puranas and Itihasas, and he puts the stories in a beautiful way for all his audience to consume. He's someone who has grown up and has loved grandmom's stories, and his writing expresses the same in the way he writes it. And he brings a playful and grounded charm to even the most epic of tales. Meeting him is truly an honor. Thank you for being in our podcast. And of course, we'd like to know a lot more from you about the two books.
Okay. Namaste, universal welcome. Since we are in Bangalore, I'll also say namaskara. All the Tamilian and Malayali friends, namaskaram. And since we are finally going to be talking in English, I'll say hello to all of you all. Thank you for the fantastic introduction. I don't know whether I've done it all or something. Also makes me feel very old and tired. I look a little old, but I'm not tired at all. Glad to be on Sangam Talks after book one. I was here for Rama of the Axe, and I'm so happy to be back here for Blade of Fury. And I hope I'm here for the third book of the trilogy when I finally complete it. Thank you for having me.
So we'll start off with a more fundamental question.
Yeah.
We're all aware that Vishnu has got 10 avatars, otherwise called Dashavatara. But I'd like to hear from you if these are the only 10 avatars of Vishnu, or there are more avatars of Vishnu.
The Dashavatara is the most famous or the most popular one. But if you look at various Puranas, you're going to find more than 10. Some give you 22, some give you 24, and amongst the avatars that have not made the list of 10, you're going to find Guru Dattatreya, whom you would have read off in the book, Mohini, Naranarayana. This list of 10, mention of them will probably be in the Garuda Purana. Why these particular 10 were chosen? And it's not coincidence that it's 10, it's not 11 or it's not 12. Probably it's because these were avatars that came in a sort of crisis or something that had to be done in a very critical situation. It's not like Guru Dattatreya, who's an immortal who's here to teach you for the ages, or a one-off instance like Mohini, who comes when the Kurma avatar is actually the dominant player there. I think that Dashavatara list became popular after Jayadeva wrote the Gita Govinda, because there's a Dashavatara stotram that comes there. So it caught popular imagination there. There are a few other, lists, so to say. You have what is called the Purusha Avatāra. The forms of Vishnu which are like foundational forms. You have a Karanodakashayi Vishnu who's bringing the universes into play. You have a form of Vishnu that then manifests the diversity in all these universes, and then who is the Atman and the Paramatman in each of these living entities in each of these universes. So that's another list. Then you have a Guna Avatāra list. That's the 3 gunas. And you have Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva as the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas in them. You have a Manvantara Avatāra list, which is you have a avatar of Vishnu to guide dharma through each Manvantara. And I think the present one, curiously enough, it differs from Purana to Purana, but what I have read is for the present Manvantara that we are in, the Manvantara Avatāra is Vamana. And if you know the Mahabali story, Mahabali is going to be the Indra for the next Manvantara. Okay. And the Manvantara Avatāra for that is Sarvabhauma. The difference comes where in some Puranas, instead of Vamana, it is Matsya who's the Manvantara Avatāra for right now. Then you have the Leela Avataras, which is where the Dashavatara comes, where this is a play of Bhagavan to balance adharma and dharma. When adharma seems to be gaining the upper hand, there is an Avatara that comes down for something. It's either to resolve a crisis, bring down a tyrant, or teach bhakti. And this is something that he plays at. And like Krishna promises in the Bhagavad Gita, whenever there is a loss of dharma and adharma seems to be gaining the upper hand, he will come down in one form or the other. So these are all lists of avataras that we as mortals have created. Now, Bhagavan doesn't have to let us know of his avataras. He can be anything, anywhere. You may most probably pass by him when you go visit a sacred site and you would not even know it's a mortal form. These are the ones that our ancestors, our rishis have, recorded, let us know, to teach us some lessons, some moral values in life. But I don't think we should come to the conclusion that Bhagavan is limited to this. He's much more than that. He's unimaginably more omniscient than all this. So this is a list that we have created for our benefit and from what we can learn from. So Dashavatara is not the only list there is.
Very nice. Thank you. Now, of course, with Dashavatara, it's limited to 10. And then as a focus area, you've picked up only Paraśurāma.
Yeah.
Can our audience and me just understand why Paraśurāma of all the so many avatars of Krishna?
To put it in a very casual way, the superstars are Sri Rama and Sri Krishna. They take the entire spotlight. And it's somewhat unfortunate that we do not really understand the scope and the magnificence of Paraśurāma. And oddly enough, it's been a very strange journey getting to write this book about him. So I did know about this list, and I did know that Paraśurāma was the 6th avatar, and I did know a little bit of the story with his mother. But that's about it, which I guess is what most people know. A few people know a little bit more about his arch enemy or the tyrant that he brought down, Kartavirarjuna, but nothing more than that. So this all started probably, I should say, in 1999 when my father passed away. And after a year, we are supposed to go to this particular ritual. And for us Malayalis, it's in this temple in a place called Thiruvallam. This is on the outskirts of Thiruvananthapuram. And when I enter the temple and I finish the rituals that's supposed to be done, is when after you do that, you go inside and get a darshan of Bhagavan. And that's when I realized that this is the first time I'm entering a Paraśurāma temple. They have a small Triveni Sangam like we have in Srirangapatna. We finish all that. And it so happened that during that time, on my maternal side as well as my paternal side, there were a series of deaths. So for the next 3-4 years, I was going back to this temple very frequently. And, because there was always somebody who had to do the rites, and I would either accompany them or be the one doing it. And that's when it struck me that, I have not entered a Paraśurāma temple anywhere else. I don't know of a Paraśurāma temple. And I started reading and I get to know that everything from Gokarna to Kanyakumari is a Paraśurāma Kshetra. And you are finally intrigued. and you start to read up and you understand what a complex character Parashurama is. And we have this image of a very angry, violent, aggressive, vengeful avatar, and that's what he's, sort of restricted to. The more I read, I thought there is more to the story than just Parashurama. So when I started writing the books, I was pretty sure that it is not just Parashurama I am writing about, but the story is also of his parents, Saptarishi Jamadagni and Renuka. And I based my research on the Brahmanda Puran, and the story of Renuka does not appear in the Brahmanda Puran. There is this temple in Savdatti in Karnataka, the Yellama temple, and if you come across the Sthala Purana of that temple, you will understand that Yellama is nobody other than Renuka. And a lot of the goddesses, especially in South India, that go by different names, Kateri Amman, Shitala Devi, Mari Amman, are all manifestations of the same goddess. The interesting thing is, you're looking at a beheading, and almost every other beheading that you come across in our Puranas ends up in somebody being a divinity. Starting with the Samudra Manthan, where one Asura gets to know that, there's something very fishy happening here and he gets into disguise, and his head gets cut by the Sudarshana Chakra, and he becomes Rahu and Ketu.
Correct.
Now they are immortalized as one of the Navagrahas. See what happens with Ganesha, the story that is not there in the Mahabharata but is very popular, barbaric. You have a temple called Katushyam in Rajasthan. It's sort of incredible. That's the same thing that's happened here, because one of the Mahavidyas, Asma Chinnamasta, has manifested in Renuka. And this was the aha moment for me when I was writing the book. While researching Parashurama, I find that he's considered an avatar of Mahavishnu. He does enormous amount of penance, tapasya, to Mahadeva. His guru is Guru Dattatreya. And now there is a Shakta element that comes in through his mom. So you have, in a way, in a sense, he is uniting Vaishnavism, Shaivism and Shaktism.
Yeah.
And the Nath Parampara, the Avaduta Parampara, into one character in the Puranas. And I thought that was so incredible. Another thing that intrigued me is that he's the only one who's called a Brahma-Kshatriya. We have heard of Krishna being lauded as Yogeshwara. And here is this man who's got this title called Brahma-Kshatriya. And we are told that he's a Brahmin who had the valor of Kshatriya or showed Kshatriya traits. But is that a definition enough? Because you've had enough and more people, take for example Vashishta, who's shown exemplary courage when confronted by Vishwamitra. That also is, martial valor that he's showing by the strength of his tapasya. But he's not called Brahma-Kshatriya. So why is this person called so? A lot of such intriguing moments in his story is what sparked the interest to write this. For a person who's trained in Dhanurveda by his father, who has all the Divyastras that you can think of, his ghor tapasya to Mahadeva results in an axe. Now, this is a weapon that you fling once. It is not like the, there is no lore about the Parashu at all. But the weapon is so important that Ramabhadra, that name is forgotten, and you have only Parashurama in front of you. It is so synonymous with him. So there had to be something with the axe. And the clue probably for me lay in the fact that there is this sword that Ravana wins from Mahadev called the Chandrahasa. And it comes with a particular condition that the moment you do something adharmic, it vanishes. You no longer can keep it with you. So he said, if there is something like that for the Chandrahasa, why isn't there anything for the Parashu? And as much as I could research, I have not been able to come across a primary source which gives me the name of the Parashu. It is still called Parashu, which just means axe. So why doesn't it have a name? The name that's floating around in the internet, I can't find a provenance for that. I can't find a primary source for it. And if the axe would be named, what would it be? And if the Chandrahasa is something that can recognize that you are doing something adharmic and leave you, there has to be some sentience to it.
Correct.
So why not with the Parashu too? And if I am starting at that point, how far can I take it? So there is a kind of spirituality attached to that parachute too. It is one through spirituality. The more I research, I find out that this supposedly violent, aggressive man has one hymn in the Rig Veda. And it's an absolutely amazing hymn because it doesn't show violence at all. It invokes three goddesses, Ila, Bharati and Saraswati, the three goddesses who sit in truth and come to hurt not. How do you reconcile this dichotomy when you're shown this popular image of a very violent man and this is the hymn that he has seen? He's a mantra drishta in the Rig Veda. So there has to be something more. And this whole trilogy of books is to try and explore that and bring it to you and tell you that there is much more to Parashurama's story than what we think. Right at the beginning, I mentioned that, Sri Rama and Sri Krishna are the superstars. Another way of looking at this is, they are tied to particular kingdoms, to particular cities, Ayodhya and Dwaraka. They have the regalia of royalty. You have colors and the flute and the peacock feather associated with Krishna. They have consorts. They are rooted in samsara, grihastha life. And here you have a person who's a brahmachari, though there is a folklore about him being married. Doesn't have a kingdom, lives in the forest, is a sage. It doesn't lend itself very easily for popular appeal. We would rather have our gods very handsome and bedecked. We love adorning our idols when festivals come. We like these sort of points where we can attach them to, like Ayodhya, there is a temple, Dwaraka. Here's this person who's in a jungle and it's like on the shores of the Narmada, and you're like, where do I actually place him? Where do I put him? You don't have landmarks like that. So what I say now is, if Krishna and Rama are like the Yamuna and the Ganga, you can see them, pratyaksha, you can go have a dip. But Parashurama is like the Saraswati. You've heard of the Saraswati, you don't hear, a big dispute whether it really was there or it was a mythical river. You have all this happening. So we know the Saraswati exists. We know it still flows subterranean.
Underground, yeah.
So you want to get to know Parashurama, you have to dig. He's going to take a test for you.
So thank you, Ranjit. That's wonderful in terms of how all of this has happened and what's inspired you. But you brought up Parashurāma Kshetra. We know that the western coast of India is where Parashurāma Kshetra is. But how did it get its name? I'm quite intrigued why only that part is called Parashurāma Kshetra.
Okay, so spoiler alert, this is going to come in book 3. So I haven't reached that point yet. So it's already there in the Purana. So after the Ashwamedha is over and Parashurama donates the entire land to Kashyapa, he's asked not to stay on the land. So he gathers his followers and he comes to this place, that's Gokarna. And for his followers to live, he throws the axe. It goes all the way down to Kanyakumari. And for that width, the ocean cedes space and the land rises up. So Parashurama is supposed to be the person who has brought this land up from the sea. So like Mr. Shashi Tharoor said, he's probably the first real estate developer that we have because he's actually lifted the land up from the sea and he's given you such a huge stretch. So from Gokarna to Kanyakumari is called the Parashurama Kshetra. And the two funny things about this is that Malayali viewers would know about this. There was this old actor in Malayalam, his name is Prem Nasir. He holds a record for acting in the maximum number of movies as hero.
Oh.
He used to have like 30-35 movies released in a year, which is like almost one every weekend.
Oh.
Okay. And a very handsome man and all that. And somebody had actually asked him in an interview, how is it that Malayali actors are paid so less? And his answer was brilliant. He said, when Parashurama threw that axe, he should have thrown it a little wider. We would have had more theatres in Kerala.
Good one.
And the second one is that the most famous festival of Kerala is Onam. This is when Mahabali comes to, meet his subjects and see his land. But Mahabali never really ruled over Kerala because this happens after the Vamana Avatāra, if you look at it.
Correct.
So the yajna that Mahabali did, where Vamana comes, happened in Bhrigu-Kacha. Now, Bhrigu-Kacha is that area that's known for Parashurama's ancestor, Bhrigu. He's a Bhargava. His lineage starts from there. So it was at Bhrigu Kacha, which is probably the Kutch region of Gujarat today, where that yajna takes place, and that's where Vamana comes to meet Mahabali. And probably there's been a migration down south. People from there have also joined the stream of people who joined Paraśurāma once he raised this year. And that memory is what is being carried down and celebrated today in Kerala. And a little bit more information about it. Onam is not something that was celebrated only in Kerala. It was also celebrated in what is known as Tamilagam. And it is not a harvest festival as is fashionably put today. It has to happen on a Dwadashi, on a particular Dwadashi, which is Vamana Jayanti. And it is not a story of the subjugation of a valiant dharmic king by this very cunning Vishnu Avatāra. It is a celebration of Mahabali understanding his lack and his Sharanagati at Vishnu's feet, which actually elevates him. You look at all the wars that you have read about in the Puranas, the Devas versus the Asuras. Here is one Asura who has perpetually won the title of Indra, because he's going to be the Indra for the next Manvantara. And people have this misconception that he is somehow being punished. I think a few people mix up Patala and Naraka. I think that's where this confusion is happening. Naraka is a completely different place. Patala is a subterranean region. And Mahabali lives in a place called Sutala, which is so beautiful that it rivals Indrapur.
Indrapuri, yes.
Yeah, and he abides his time there for the next Manvantara to begin, where he takes over as Indra. So he's not being punished. He's been made an immortal, and he's been elevated as the king of gods. So we have got the story a little wrong somewhere, and I think it's time that we corrected it. I thought I'll just slip it in because you're talking about Paraśurāma Kshetra.
Fair enough. Thank you. That's very enlightening. I think I heard it in a very good podcast by somebody well adept in this, who put it beautifully to say when the 3 steps was being offered to Vamana, everybody, including Shukracharya and his own wife, came back and said, "No, this is Vishnu. Please realize and do not do this."
Yeah.
And there is a shloka where he clearly admits, "Where better a place to place his feet than my own head?"
Yeah.
So he knew when he was doing.
Yeah.
So he did this very much with knowledge. And this is not him being punished.
Yes.
Completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. Very nice. So I'll move on to our next question. Our sages have beautifully understood data encryption. It's a fancy word used today in computer science and whatnot. But a lot of our texts are encrypted with so much data, with so much of information, that just to decipher them, you need to really work on them, concentrate on them, learn them. If that is the case, and if that is true, and if very little is known about Paraśurāma, did our sages really want to encrypt that data? What is your thought process on this?
This is another journey actually, because I started off by thinking this is lost knowledge. And during my research, I come across this blog by this person called Manasa Tarangini. I mention his name every time because it had so much information in that. And what I am now going to narrate comes from there. It seems somewhere in the 16th or 17th century, there was this Maratha chieftain called Sabaji Pratap. And he had the small Jagir in south of Ahmednagar. And he comes across these texts, which are in an old Telugu script. Surprising books. Agastya Mahatmya. I don't know whether we have that book now. A Paraśurāmayana and Bhriguvamsha Mahakavya. And these books are taken from there and brought to Maharashtra probably. And these are compiled into 3 different books. Now these books exist. They are with some Bhargava families. Either they've forgotten they have it, or they're not sure what to do with it. Nobody's been able to figure out what this contains, or they're not prepared to bring it out in the public right now. So what I think now is probably Bhagavan Paraśurāma has not thought it fit to have his story out in the public right now. maybe the time will come. Maybe he's waiting for somebody to put the pieces together. So this, I get asked this in another way where they ask, why are there not too many temples to Parashurama? And a lot of the reasons that I mentioned, right, why we don't know too much about Parashurama, probably adds up to this. And if you want a sort of Puranic reasoning to this too, there is a curse that is attached to Kartavirarjuna. So when he destroys a sacred grove, there is Varuna's son, who is a great rishi himself called Apava, and he curses Kartavirarjuna, saying that you may be the Samrat of the seven Dvipas now, but your name will not be remembered. There will be another Arjuna born centuries later, and he will have all the glory and not you. So whenever we look at a protagonist, it is the power and the influence of the antagonist that he overcomes that adds to his charm.
Correct.
So when you forget who the antagonist is, it rubs off a bit on the protagonist too. So you have Rama, Ravana, you have Krishna, Kansa, Shishupala. Not too many people know, about Kartavirarjuna. And it is and Kartavirarjuna himself is such a fascinating character. It's two complex characters at odds with each other, because he is not somebody who started off evil. He was a profoundly dharmic king who has lost his way and allowed ego and the power lust to overcome him. And coincidentally, he shares his guru with Parashurama, because Guru Dattatreya is the one who gave him all these powers. Another fascinating thing, based on what is there in the Puranas, Kartavirarjuna had this uncanny ability to read the minds of people who are in front of him. And on the other side, just like you've seen with this old Devanand movie called Jewel Thief, he plays somebody who has a photographic memory. He needs to read a page once and he remembers exactly what's there. He never forgets. Would you believe it that there is a character in the Puranas who does this? You've heard about time travel and everything in our Puranas. Even if you are a person who believes this is what, mythology, and these are just stories made up by people, look at the brilliance of the people who have done this. They've thought about something like this. Their creative ability is so great thousands of years ago that they could imagine a person with photographic memory who could read minds, a sort of mentalist, and the person who has this photographic memory is Parashurama. And these are the two people who are at loggerheads with each other. It's an incredibly evenly matched challenge that happens. And the climatic fight that happens between the two of them, for me, it absolutely overshadows a lot of the other, wars and battles that we have seen. We all know Vali, Sugriva, and Hanuman and Kumbhakarna, and a lot of these battles that we have seen. It's pretty dramatic and pretty evenly matched up to the last moment. And one of my dearest wishes in writing book one was to try and bring that climax, that kind of a very, nail-biting kind of finish for the climax. I think it's time we knew more about Kartavirarjuna and consequently a lot more about Parashurama, or the other way around. I think he deserves his place in the sun.
Thank you. That actually brings me to the next question, right? So every avatar of Vishnu we've heard of has got a very, very specific purpose, right from Matsya Avatāra. As you very well said, the superstars, Rama Avatāra is known for taking down Ravana. Narasimha is known for taking down Hiranyakashipa. And of course, each of them also had another story attached to it. Rama, when he takes his avatara, he says, I will show people how to live a human life. So I will be a human and I will not be a god, is one of his true statement, right? So what was the purpose, according to you, for the Paraśurāma Avatāra? Is it purely to avenge Kartavirarjuna, or is there a bigger purpose?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's this old Roman saying, who will guard us from the guardians? According to the traditional Varna system, the Kshatriyas are our guardians. They put the power behind Dharma. So what happens if they go adharmic? Okay. So one of the reactions, actually, after book one came out, I had a few people come and tell me, you know what, Parashurama is our enemy we are Kshatriyas and he did this. And the first few times I was surprised. But then, the reply I give them now is that, see, all the glory that you deserve now for how brave and honorable you guys have been, in a sense, is because of Paraśurāma. Because he ensured that the bad amongst you all were weeded out a long time back, that left only the ones who would stick to the dharmic path.
Yeah.
See, he removed the bad ones, the bad apples out of your way. So all the glory that you richly deserve today comes from the man who did the culling a long time back. So he shouldn't be your enemy. You should be thanking him for this. So here in Paraśurāma's story, we don't have an asura who is his nemesis. We have a mortal king who is so blessed by Guru Dattatreya that he is practically immortal, cannot be defeated, and who has let all these boons go to his head. And there is nobody to stop this man. And his power is so overwhelming that not only does he corrupt himself, he starts to corrupt the entire system, because everything warps to his wish. Now, the Kshatriyas think might is right. Matsya Nyaya starts to establish, because he says, I lay down the law, my way or the highway. So when common folk suffer, you need the might of an Avatāra to come down and take care of things, which is one of the reasons I think Paraśurāma Avatar took place. As a writer, I also think that there is a need for righteous wrath. When things go too bad, you cannot be having the shield of tolerance all the time.
Correct.
You do need a weapon, right? I mean, you've heard all those sayings where you don't recite poetry to a pointed sword. You can't preach philosophy to somebody who's trying to attack you. You need to defend and attack back. And I think this is a person who sort of embodies that, because he took on this whole mighty Samrat single-handedly. He did not let the lack of numbers come there. He had that conviction to stand his ground. If you look at stuff that is happening in our borders or something right now, if you think Paraśurāma was there, what would have been his reaction? He would have probably, in good faith, given you a warning. He would have very clearly drawn a boundary and said, that's where it ends. And if you transgress that, he would have made sure that you're losing the limb that you have transgressed with and you're back. So that kind of a deterrent, that kind of aggressiveness, which as a civilization maybe we have forgotten. I don't want to use the word lost, because I'm sure it exists in pockets at least, is a reminder to us that we do have an avatar that teaches you this. We have Sri Rama who stands steadfast for dharma, and he gives his word and will not come back. We have Krishna who teaches us how to manage things when so many things are at play. We have a person who says, thus far, no further. And the tragic thing for me is that you don't have a single regiment, a strike force, or anything in our armed services that addresses this Avatāra. You have regimental war cries, Jai Bajrangbali, Jai Ma Kali, all this is there, but we don't have something for Paraśurāma, who in our Puranic account is one of the most powerful warriors you can find. Right up there with, Sri Rama and Indrajit and all these people. Name the Divyastra, he has it. He has his incredible Parashu. And we do not celebrate his valor enough. I think the times that we live in is perfect for you to start channeling your inner Paraśurāma and recognizing why we need him today.
Well, we hope that the right people in the armed forces are viewing this podcast and take inspiration from what Paraśurāma has done for us as a civilization and as the entire world.
Yes, please.
That
would be a great thing. That would be a great thing.
Right reactions. It's well known that Paraśurāma is one of the Chiranjeevis. If that is true, we hear a lot about some of the other Chiranjeevis being sighted, being seen in some temples, being seen atop hilltops. Have we had similar stories in your research? Have you come across similar stories of Paraśurāma?
There's a lot of folklore regarding this. On YouTube, you find a lot of shots that say, I saw Ashwatthama somewhere here and stuff like this. You're not going to find videographic evidence for any of this. These are just stories that come out. but somebody seems to have seen 12-foot man with a scar on his forehead and all that. You don't have sightings of Paraśurāma, but you have lore that dates a few centuries back. There's a very popular story in Kerala that the original Vigraha of Ayyappa at Sabarimala has been carved by him. Because when the king was putting up that murti, everything he tried was failing. The murti would crack. He didn't know what the correct posture for a brahmachari in this state should be. It is Paraśurāma who comes and carves that murti for him. That original one is lost. It's the fire and all that stuff that happened. We don't have that murti anymore. That's one lore that's associated with him. There is one more that is connected to one of the most famous festivals of Kerala, that is the Thrissur Puram. A very famous temple in Kerala called Vadakkumnathan. That's Mahadeva temple. And that there is a very special thing about the Shivalinga there. You never see the Shivalinga because the Abhishekam is done with ghee, and with all the heat and that small chamber of the sanctum, the ghee never melts. So the ghee has piled up over the Shivalinga, and all the alankara that you see is on the ghee. You don't see the Shivalinga there at all. It somehow cools and solidifies around the Shivalinga itself. So it seems the original Shivalinga was placed there by Paraśurāma and consecrated. There is a story that he has established 108 Shivalayas and 108 Devi temples throughout Paraśurāma Kshetra. And the first amongst that is Vadakkumnathan in Thrissur. Thrissur is a short form of Trishiva Perur, that is the sacred place of Shiva. And that is one lore associated with him. And another fascinating thing that I came across is that there are these 13 temples in Kerala which follow a particular kind of temple architecture. It's called the Rurujit Vidhana. And these are all Devi temples. The murti will face in a particular direction. And corresponding to that murti, the Shivalinga will place in a particular direction. You will always find the Saptamatrikas. These are Devi temples of enormous power. I mean, you watch some videos on YouTube too, you can sense that from the visuals itself. I don't have to tell you what you're going to feel when you enter the temple premises. Chotanikara, Kodungalur, all these places are associated with or based on this Rurujit Vidhana and established by Paraśurāma. All 13 to Devi. We have the oldest martial art in the world, that's Kalaripayattu, and this comes down in two ways. One is from Shiva to Nandi to Paraśurāma, and the other one is from Kartikeya to Agastya. And both these schools of Kalari are present even today. It's almost the same thing that they are teaching you, but in different format. So the Paraśurāma school of Kalari teaches you armed combat first and ends up with unarmed combat. It's the reverse for the Agastya school. So, Paraśurāma, though you don't have, these fantastic claims of sightings happening, what he has done and left and gone continues to, affect us even today. All the Kshetras that he's left. Here in Karnataka, actually, Aihole gets his name because there's a legend of him washing the axe in the bend in the Tungabhadra, and there is a washerwoman who sees the river turn red and says, Aihole. In that language, in that time, it meant that the waters turn red, and that's how the place gets its. And I have this reader who took book one to a temple while she was traveling in Himachal, and she just wandered into a place and found out that it was a Renuka temple. And to my good luck, God bless her for this, she placed my book at Devi's feet, and the pujari started to tell her a story about a particular lake there, and how every Ekadashi there is a fair and a mela that happens in one particular Ekadashi of every year, where there is a Paraśurāma temple above, and the murti is carried down to the lake for him to meet his mother, because she is supposed to have given up her life there. So now you have a story that is from up north. You have the Paraśurāma Kshetra down south. You have these incredible tales of him washing his axe even in Arunachal Pradesh. There is a Parashuram Kund there, and there is a big festival that happens there too. So it is the length and breadth of India that he's covered.
Clearly so. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't put too much credence into the sightings, these immortals that come in, because traditionally what we believe is Parashurama is in Tapasya at Mount Mahendra, which they say is in Orissa now. And you have a village where you have some semblance of an axe, which they claim nobody's been able to lift so far. That you will find that on social media too. But going with the mystique of Parashurama that we have seen, and like we said, he's like a Saraswati, you have to dig. I don't think it is time yet, but it's coming out now. And I think the full glory of Parashurama will be revealed when he thinks it's time to do so. We have to wait for Kalki Avatar to come, because he's going to be the guru to Kalki Avatar. So whenever that happens.
So of the 10 avatars of Vishnu, there are different types of avatars, like you said earlier. There's Purna avatar like Rāma and Kṛṣṇa. Probably Parashurama is the only one known as a Shakti Avesha Avatāra. Can you throw some more light into what this means?
Yeah, this is a sort of a Vaishnava tradition where it comes down to people looking at how much power of Mahavishnu has come down. Has he come down himself, like they claim Sri Krishna has? And sometimes he just empowers a human being with a portion of his splendor, which is a Shakti Avesha avatar, where only a portion of Mahavishnu's power, and Parashurama is one amongst them. Nara Narayana is also like that. This depends on the belief of your sampradaya, I think. There are sampradayas that hold Rama to be a Purna Avatāra. Narasimha too is considered a Purna Brahma Avatāra. He's like the absolute Brahman by certain communities. So I leave that to the belief of the community that you are born in, and how you want to approach your personal Kul Devta, how you see them. Finally, that is our goal, getting there. How do I see Parashurama? I see him as an avatar of Mahavishnu. It really does not matter to me whether he is Purna or not, because avatar is a descent of the divine into a mortal form. But for what purpose? So that we may ascend and get to that ultimate consciousness. So anything that helps us
To show us the path.
Yeah, at least one step there is deserving of our devotion and bhakti. So rather than getting mired into these classifications or getting into this Bollywoodization of, which hero's movie had the first day collection more, instead of getting into all this kind of comparisons, this is Bhagavan finally. And it is your devotion and your faith in him that is going to pay off, and not whether it is a Purna Avatāra or a Shakti Avesha Avatāra. So make your connect with him, and that's all that matters finally.
Very nice. Thank you. Of course, the first book for all the readers who have read it is a journey where Parashurama's parents are defined, and then it goes on to say how he became a Brahma-Kshatriya, and ends with the battle with Kartavirarjuna. And the second book sort of gets until a point where he fights Kartavirarjuna's son, or Jayadwaja. What can we expect in the third book? I'm curious, no?
Okay. See, there was a funny thing happened while writing book 2. I had done with the manuscript, and we were just going to start the edit when a friend of mine, messages me, and I can see my WhatsApp go ping, 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 ping. And he says, what, I found something. And we have this very, I don't know how many of North Indians would have heard of him. Tolkappiyar, who the oldest extant Tamil manuscript we have, the Tolkappiyam, or grammar in Tamil language, turns out is a brother of Parashurama. So we don't know which brother, because in the Puranas, in one version he's the youngest, Parashurama is the youngest. Another version, he is the oldest of the 5 brothers. So one of these brothers becomes a Shishya of Agastya, travels down south with him, and the first grammatical treatise is the Agatyam, which we do not have a copy of. So his Shishya rewrites that name, and since that book is called the Tolkappiyam, he's called Tolkappiyar. Happens to be a son of Jamadagni and a brother of Parashurama. So at least this story should give you pause in this Sanskrit versus Tamil kind of nonsense that we are hearing now. Does it really matter which language is the oldest? When you're born and you cry out in whatever language, your mother is going to come to you. You are going considering that language your mother tongue. So respect each other's mother tongue. That's all that matters here. And if you think languages were at war with each other, you're completely mistaken. If you look at Sangam literature and if you look at the poems of Kalidasa, this very beautiful book, it gives you a lot of similarities between Sangam poetry and what's found in Kalidasa's poetry. One of his most famous works is the Meghadutam, the cloud messenger. You will find the same motive of a cloud messenger in Sangam poetry. So you had this cultural mix and the give and take and communication happening there. So this is not something that, developed exclusively and were at loggerheads or something of a sort. Languages don't survive that way. We have so many loan words from other languages. So does Tamil, so does Sanskrit. This artificial divide that's been created. Our Puranic stories are actually telling you that no, this is not how it happened. Like I told you about Onam, this is somebody who is from Gujarat that we are celebrating today in Kerala. We don't have a problem with that. Somebody asked me, why are you doing this? This is what we believe in. So please read our Puranic stories to understand the connections that they are drawing. I just gave you connections to Paraśurāma from across India. So if you're going to Arunachal Pradesh and asking them, he lived on the banks of Narmada, why are you connected to him? He's going to look at you like you're some loony person because he's got his itihasa, he's got his legend there for him to believe in. So let's not use this to divide rather than look at how this actually brings us all together as one civilization. Book 3, I am trying to bring the entire story of Paraśurāma as much as I have been able to research and know to a conclusion. Book 3. Book 3 wasn't intended, but I thought the story would end with book 2. But once I finished writing, like say 45,000 words, and I got to know that it is not going to, otherwise it's going to be a huge book 2, which is like, 1,000-page long, and who is going to sit and read 1,000 pages in today's world? And the cost of a book that's 1,000 pages long is going to be astronomical. So I immediately got in touch with my publisher and said, okay, you should write and let us know what's happening. And that's how it went to book 3. So I need to, all the unanswered questions that I've left in book 1 and 2, the clues that I've given you, the 3.5 loops, Dattatreya says, what does he do with the 2 pots? I have to bring all this to a conclusion in the book 3 and raise the land and all these stories, and spring a couple of surprises for you about the axe and what the final secret of the axe is, because Mahadeva gives him a clue, tells him you're almost there. One of which I probably have mentioned somewhere in the beginning of this podcast, if you guys have realized it. The second one I have not mentioned. So this is what you can expect in book 3, and I hope I do justice to the
Thank you.
book.
It was I think last month we got in touch with each other. I ended up downloading the Kindle version of the book, read it once. I can't say I've read it in depth. I've just skipped through it, but I'd love to go back, read it multiple times because it's got its own layers, its own ways of getting into the story in different formats. And to all the readers, I would suggest please read book 1 and 2, and of course look forward to book 3 from Ranjit.
Thank you.
It's been a wonderful read, Ranjit. It's enlightening in many ways.
Thank you so much, Srinidhi, for fantastic questions, fantastic interview. I'm so happy to be associated with Sangam Talks. They're having me back for the 3rd time. Actually, I did one in English, I did one in Malayalam, and now I'm back for the 3rd one. I'm so grateful for what you guys are trying to achieve with this platform, and I'm happy to help in whatever way I can. Thank you for having me on this platform. Thank you, Ranjit.